Make sure I got my water. No. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-mm. Did she take a look at that picture? It says, I'll read it to you. Don't you worry. I'm getting close to this thing. All right. Is this it? All right, I can see it. All right. So the little thing says, I am not sick. He or she is. That's what it says there. All right. Is it ready? All right. So does anyone understand what that emoji is showing? Sometimes we be pointing out, I'm not the one that's sick. That one is, or this one is, right? So that's what we're going to look at today. Now, all your answers, because the way that we're recording, has to be in the microphone. So, of course, we're going to read the instructions, but if you want it to be heard, you might want to put it on the mic. All right. So the question is, are you sick? So we're going to talk a little bit about a spiritual immune system, meaning we're going to attach the natural immune system to the spiritual immune system. Is everyone with me so far? Okay, so I'm going to ask this question now. How many of you guys are sick spiritually, not physically? Spiritually. So right now, everyone says they're healthy.
Somewhat.
So we're not sure until you give us the definition.
Well, I mean, from where you are right now, we say we're spiritually, our immune system is strong.
Low.
We're not sick spiritually. Okay. All right. All right. Well, let's see where we at. Let's see where we at. All right. Yeah. All right. So of course the rules. Please keep your mic muted except when asking or answering a question. Use the mic to speak. There is a feature in the Zoom chat room, which we ain't got to worry about today. So we'll skip on down. If you pass your 60-second window, your mic will be muted for you. These rules are due to time in the recording of the lesson. This is a live teaching. You must give more enough time to complete the lesson. This will be mixed. Today is going to be a lot of discussion. All right, to help build one another, please do not abuse the time. So again, the design of these discussion is to build each other, not to tear each other down, not to use it for our own gain of pointing fingers. Is everyone with me so far? All right, now, if the shoe fits, you just got to wear it, right? But if not, but remember, the design of it is to help ourselves to grow, right? Okay, great. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to give you guys an example of how this is going to go. Now, here's going to be a little bit deeper than what I usually would do, but because I'm the substitute teacher today, I'm going to share with you how this is going to work, and in the future, we'll talk about how we will break this down. All right. So the immune system is made up of a complex network of organisms. And I put maybe a future lesson. So what I'm talking about is if we think about our heart, right? You see that our physical heart has 4 chambers. Everyone's familiar with how our heart works, right? But why then does Yah compare our heart spiritually, and how does it work physically? So there's a connection with the 4 chambers. There's a lot of stuff that goes with it. Same thing we would say with our kidneys, right? Kidneys, the word chala, which is the physical word for kidneys, but we also understand it's a filtration system, and so we understand that there's a spiritual aspect about how we need to filter things through our kidneys spiritually. So we're not going to do that today. I'm just giving you some examples that we'll do. Cells, proteins that fight infection, or microbes. Now, we'll talk a little bit about cell, katsat, just a little bit. Proteins, we're not going to talk about. Some people don't like the word protein for whatever reason, but the word protein, everyone, where that word come from, rarely don't care, right? All right, so basically in 1838, John Jacob Benzelius, he came up with that word protein back in 1838. Prior to that, it was just amino acids. So, but don't even worry about that. All right, so the immune system keeps a record of every microbe it has ever defeated, right? The immune system does this. The white blood cells have the B lymphocytes, or the B cell, that produces antibodies. Anyone know what an antibody is? Great, what is it? Everyone shook their head. Yeah, I know exactly what that is.
That's what fights off the infections in your body.
Okay, fights off the infections, right? Why do they call it antibodies?
I would think it's because they're anti the new viral or bacterial bodies that are coming in you.
Okay, we'll use that for right now. The T lymphocytes destroy cells that have taken over. So what I mean by this, the T cells are designed for if your cells have been taken over, it just destroys it. There's no repairing that. Okay, and we're gonna see how that works later on. All right, so these are known as memory cells. So this is how they memorize certain things. This means that it can recognize and destroy the microbes quickly if it enters the body, again, before it can multiply and make you feel sick, naturally. So everyone with me so far? Everyone loves biology? Okay, awesome. All right, so here's the deal. So seeing this from a spiritual standpoint. So the B cells, or the B lymphocytes that produces the antibodies, the antibodies attack virus, toxins, etc. This is likened to the word of Yahuwah. All right? It gives you what you need to fight and or help you remember so that you can get to the heart of the matters, such as sin, love, discipline, communication, etc. Right? So we're going to see how that mirrors today. The T lymphocytes, obviously we say destroys the cells that have been taken over. These are things that do not belong in your life. These things that need to be destroyed. If not, it could take over you. This can cause permanent damage. This is something you have to make a decision on and literally walk out. And we'll see how that works, physically and mentally. Okay, so lymphatic system is your cleaner, is your drainage system, how the lymphatic system works. But we're not going to go all the way into lymphatic system. So far, is everyone okay? Haven't hurt nobody's feelings? All right, so everyone can see the mirror between B and the T cells, and think about the Father's word is designed to help us with all of our attacks, with everything that's going on in our life. But then you have another part of you in this immune system that if it overtakes you, it needs to be destroyed. If not, you're going to be, which we'll find out later on, you can be possessed. Okay, so we'll see how that works. Now, I'm going to tell you right off the back what the immune system is, but we'll see it later on. Your immune system spiritually is going to be Elohim or Yahuwah Sibaot. Sibaot literally means what? Host. So you're going to see that this host, Yahuwah's host, the spiritual immune system, is designed to help you in all kinds of ways, which we'll see later on. All right. Now, some infections like the flu, common cold, have to be fought many times because so many viruses or strands of the same type of viruses that can cause these illnesses. It tries to adapt to the condition. Everyone knows about these little nuances, these different strands, right? Okay, great. So catching a cold or a flu from one virus does not give you the immunity against the others. So there's a slight nuance to something, right? So then your body has to recognize that, and it keeps, morphing, if you will. So question is, mentally, how can we create these strands?
By being intentional.
Okay, by being intentional.
By experiencing it.
By experiencing it. As they do at the synagogue. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm just trying to track here. So like viruses, they have a little bit of genetic material, right? Whether it be RNA or DNA, depending. But they have a little bit of coding, right? That little bit of information. So depending on what we have to get a new immunity to these, because there's a little bit different information that's being coded that's expressing the proteins, right, between these different viruses. So it could be something similar, but there's something, a new aspect of it, a slight difference to the situation that we might have gone similar situation, but it has a new trait to it that catches us off guard, right?
Okay.
I got one.
Okay.
By walking contrary to the Father's word, that could cause you to have a mental strain.
Okay.
By allowing things to come into your life.
Okay. Allowing things come into your life.
I was going to land back on that. Listen to negativity.
Okay. Listening to negativity.
So real quick, would
Hold
you
on.
I was going to say something very similar by if you, a lot of times colds and things are contagious. So being around someone who has that, you may contract it.
Okay.
So when you say like create new strands, you're talking about new strands of a virus, right?
Right.
So I believe the way that we can create new strands is allowing a virus that's there to morph into bigger things, to more things, to letting it linger, not getting rid of the issue at the core, at the root of it.
Okay. So what I want you to see is sometimes when we have disagreements, sometimes we come back at that disagreement from a different strand, a different way, right? It's the same thing, but you decide you want to attack it from a different angle. It's still the same virus, but it comes in a different strand. Is everyone with me so far? Okay. So asking or stating information with a twist or a nuance, trying to ask from different angles, right? So you got to ask yourself, because this is what's happening. If someone's talking to you and you answer them, but then they come back with a nuance, something a little bit different, the person that's receiving this information is thinking, what's the purpose? In other words, I thought I answered you. What's going on here, right? So is that person looking for consistency? Is that why this person's coming with these different angles? To trap a person? Is this why you're doing this? Not having an understanding. That's a possibility, right? So, but the problem is that person's not letting the other person know that. So they're left with trying to figure you out, whatever that question is, whatever you're saying. They're in their mind trying to figure out where you're coming from. Is everyone with me so far? All right, so what could this cause? You don't have to worry about it, I got you. A mental and or spiritual infection. So now is because that person hasn't made it clear, you're breaking down that communication between the two people. Does anyone understand what I'm talking about, right? So we can affect the communication. Are they listening? Do they hear themselves? You know how we start, in our mind, we're ready to jump at each other because the other person was not clear enough. Or it makes them feel like you're asking me this question. Are you trying to trap me? Are you trying to see if I'm going to say the same thing? Are you trying to say I'm trying to be consistent? Right? So what I'm getting at is that now what happens is the two people are going to start to be at odds because the communication is broken. Start off nice. Shalom, sis. Shalom, brother. Shalom, how's everything? Good. What's that you wearing? Oh, the minute she said that or he said that, the way in which they said it caused a problem, right? Oh, I didn't mean nothing by it. Well, the way it was said, or the person said, what you wearing? And then keep going with it so they can have an understanding. Everybody don't have to jump on the defensive. Is everyone with me so far? All right, so I just keep that in mind. So if you're going to do this here, and in these nuances, if you're going to ask the person a question from different angles, give that person the courtesy to know why you're trying to ask them things in different angles, because why? You might think that person's not smart or wise enough to see it. But if they do and they don't say nothing, they're thinking you have something against them. Does that make sense?
I'll try to keep it short to just make sure
60
I'm tracking.
seconds.
Yeah. So please time me. So we're talking about viruses. So a virus by biological definition, they say a virus isn't alive. It needs a host to be able to reproduce its genetic material, right? So the thing with a virus is it is trying to put out something that can get within the gate, so to speak, of the cell, right? It's trying to get inside the cell to reproduce its genetic material because it can't do it on its own. So a question can be like that from the enemy, so to speak. It kind of phrases the question a different way with a malicious intent behind it, right? A question framed a different way. So why you ask me that? And then if someone has their guard up to the first question, but then they respond in a negative way to the next question, then it causes this malice all of a sudden that's growing, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So it affected the conversation. Why? Because the person was not clear in why they're coming at them from these different angles. So because they didn't make that clear, it makes this person think differently towards this person. Now, if the person says, I'm asking you this, but I'm asking you from a different perspective because I'm still not getting it, then they can say, okay, well, let me hear it. But if you're doing it from these different angles and not expressing why, then they're going to say, you must either think I'm stupid or you're trying to trap me in my words. Or, they start to walk down these lists in their mind. Meanwhile, this person can either legitimately trying to figure something out or they really are trying to see how consistent you are or trying to trap you. Okay? All right. Any other questions?
So it's a question, concern type of thing. So what if you're being genuine and you really want to know? Because I know I'm guilty of looking for a pattern, like I'll just wait it out, like maybe I'm wrong, you know. But what if it's the same person and you really are concerned for them and your own thoughts and feelings or whatever? Like you might not be putting a lot of thought into it, but every time you're around a particular person, this thing happens or something, right? I mean, because what you're saying is like there's something else to what you're saying that might be missing from the board. So
Right. Well, as we keep going, when we start getting into the cell, we're going to start to see how that works. But in layman's terms, yes, if there's something when, let's say, two individuals is always bumping heads, the first thing is going to be, which we'll talk about later on, is about what does it mean to be humble, right? Because sometimes humble, we're just thinking, I'll just keep my mouth shut or I won't say nothing, versus understanding humbleness comes with some action. But the action is going to have to be on both sides, not one side. You know what I mean? Because what winds up happening is one starts looking at you trying to get over on me, or you put me. Somebody's not being humble, then it creates this other issue. But we'll see that as we walk this pattern out. All right, so we get rid of those. Let's keep going. All right, so the main parts of the immune system are white blood cells, antibodies, the complement system, which is your cleaners of the system. We're not going to talk about that today. The lymphatic system, spleen, bone marrow. We'll talk a little bit about the bone and bone marrow, the thymus. We're not going to talk about that. The immune system cleans the house, the vessel, the body. And so remember, I said, what is the immune system? For right now, everyone knows the immune system is Yahuwah of hosts. Okay, great. So let me put my disclaimer up because, if you're going to use someone else's video, you got to put their link up there. All right, so here, I want you guys to listen. It's super short.
Innate and adaptive. The innate is the first to detect when an organism does not belong to the body and directs the adaptive part to tackle the intruder.
Now, see how fast that was? So now, question is, what are the two parts and its function? I just want to see how fast you guys are willing to listen.
Identify.
First, what are the two parts?
It's the emet and
the emet, the truth.
That's what I heard.
Okay, someone's gonna help you out in just a minute. Someone want to help them what the two was? I knew this was perfect for this group. Yes, you sure did. I said you guys got to listen to the video. Very short. All right, so I'm going to play it again.
Innate and adaptive. The innate is the first to detect when an organism does not belong to the body and directs the adaptive part to tackle the intruder.
Okay, now anyone want to answer? Innate and adaptive. Is everyone with me so far? All right, no problem. We'll work on that. So the two parts of the immune system. The innate is the first part to detect when something doesn't belong, right? So think about that. The first thing is when we're communicating, the minute I'm having a breakdown, something doesn't belong, meaning in that communication, in the way that we're treating each other, something doesn't belong. If the scripture tells us how to love, how to treat each other, something is not there. So physically, we see what it does in the body. I'm just saying spiritually, we need to figure out how to do this. So the adaptive portion of it tackles the issue, right? Not the emotion. Because sometimes we like to adapt to the emotion and not the issue. Okay? Is everyone with me so far? Okay. I said, Father, I know they're going to get this one. Absolutely not. All right. So the purpose of this lesson, this is so all the intros to share with you though is that there's a lot to talk about when we start comparing certain things. But this is going to be the scope for this lesson. Number one, understand the physical or natural will helps us understand the mental and the spiritual. My desire is to be ready for when he comes. We need to be prepared. So that's what we're going to talk about. I think we all should be on one accord with that. He has given us everything to heal the body and fight against foreign parasites and other illnesses such as herbs, fruits, water, etc. These are all the things for the physical, right? All right. Yahuwah has also given us everything we need to fight against spiritual matters or things and be able to heal spiritually and mentally, such as his word, his spirit. I put spirits because you got the spirit of wisdom, spirit of knowledge. I'm talking about some other spirit, okay? Prayer, faith, and belief. All this is necessary, okay? The immune system is one of many ways to see how the body learns how to heal itself when it is not healthy or maintaining its health. These are the things that your immune system can teach you. In the same way, I would like to show how his word, accompanied by his spirit, his ruach, prayer, faith, can help you heal spiritually and mentally. And the last conclusion that I want to present is how we can be able to be whole physically, mentally, spiritually, if you just follow the protocol or protocols that he has laid out for all of us to follow. That's what we're going to go over. Okay, now, there's about roughly 18 slides left. Just got a lot of information on it. So we're going to keep going. Any questions about this here? Low? Tove. Now, the body responds to a cut and or an infection. So when you get a cut, and if you do not cover it, the cut can get infected. The white blood cells, your immune system, if you will, kicks in. Everyone's familiar with that, right? Has everyone seen how it looks? Great. Well, let's take a look. No audio, so I want you to see. Here's the cut. The yellow stuff is going to be the infection. You see the little white blood cells. You see the blood flow, the red blood cells, no problem. Then you see that thing there. What do you think that thing is right there? It's a neutrophil. It's a neutrophil. We're not going to talk about neutrophils, but look what it does. Wherever the issue is, the white blood cell is going to where this area is. The neutrophil takes in the things that's not supposed to be there. It brings it in. It's combing all the walls to get all infection out. That's its design. Okay? And then once it gets all the infection, then the neutrophil itself dies. It goes small, then the body eats it up, the other cells eats this stuff. So I'm just sharing with you that just how this is the same way we need to be concerned in situations or issues that we have with each other, okay? The only way to clean this thing out is to get it all cleaned out. Not this part and leave this one undone, not that part, and think that you're trying to figure out how to move forward, but you keep going back because the wound now all of a sudden gets reinfected. Why is it reinfected? Because we weren't able to get it all the way cleaned out. Is everyone with me so far? Okay. So, but before we do that, I have said before we're going to go any deeper into white blood cells, I want to discuss another defense system of the body, very brief, okay, which is, what is the purpose of ear, nose hairs, and your eyebrow? What is the purpose of hair? 1, 2, 3.
To keep debris out.
To keep debris out?
Yeah, dust, dirt, yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Everyone's good? All right. So, there are two types of ear hairs, the villus and the trachea. Tell me what's the villus for. Okay, tell me what the trachea is for. Okay, I just don't know. I got it. So we'll keep going. All right, so the peach fuzz, right? The peach fuzz that like layers like it's called the villus hairs. This type of hair first developed in the childhood and helps the body to regulate temperature. So you ever see like even your hair standing when it's cold, and everyone's familiar with these things, right? All right, sometimes when you feel something's not right, does your hair stand up too? Are these warning signs for your body? All right, great. The next one is the terminal ear hair, or the trachea. Works together with your body's natural ear wax to perform a protective barrier, just like nose hair, which I'll say something real briefly about. It helps to prevent germs, bacteria, and debris from getting inside your inner ear and causing potential damage. Now, so that, I'm not saying if I see a bunch of ear wax in your ears that you got a lot of bacteria, I need to stay away from you. You just might need to clean your ears. However, I'm saying that your body has a couple of defenses, right? Keep that in mind. So the hair in the ear traps anything that is foreign and helps create a buildup of wax. Is everyone with me so far? No problem with that? You have an outer and inner warning system. Be careful with what you hear. It can create or build up unwarranted information. Right? So there's a thing that's why I asked you guys, when something doesn't sound right or feel right, you guys, your hair stand up a little bit. At least that's what most people have agreed to, right? But if it's standing up, that could be the Ruach also cluing you in on something. Now, once you're alert, then the next thing has to be the spiritual, the inside of you, because you want to make sure it doesn't create some type of unwanted information. Is everyone with me so far? Very simple? All right. So let's talk about the nose. If the debris gets past the hairs in the snot box, the bronchus and the lungs, in line with the hair-like projections, right? These called the cilia that moves micro debris up and down out of the airways. All right, scattered throughout the cilia are globulate cells that secrete mucus that helps protect the bronchus lining and traps microorganisms. So I put this is why you now understand why you do a lot of coughing, and you start coughing up a lot of mucus and things like that, right? Is everyone with me so far? All right. The eyelashes are also a defense mechanism. It protects the eyes and makes you blink if things get too close. If something gets past this defense, the eye is coated with a fluid to help trap debris. Now, I'm not saying when you start looking at each other, if you don't like what you hear, you start blinking your eyes really fast, talking about back up. I'm just simply sharing what your body does, okay? All right, so technically mucus is a sticky material that lines your lungs, your throat, mouth, nose, and sinus. It's produced by the membrane in the nose and the sinuses, and its main function is to trap bacteria, viruses, allergens like dust or pollen in your nose and prevent them from spreading throughout your body and making you sick. Now, everyone understands how this works. This will be a whole nother lesson to share with you how this works with hair, because the etymology of the word is sa'ar, the Hebrew word, and it means literally a strong movement from within. That's literally what the word hair means in the Hebrew. So we need to see how that works, why these senses, and we'll talk about that maybe towards the end if we have time. All right, words that can be traced to the scriptures. So these words that we're going to look at today. All right, immune system, cell, air, light/sunshine, water. Yes, I put 2 liters with Celtic salt because they say that's how you can get the water into your cell, the cell of your water, with a little bit of Celtic salt. Rest, exercise, appetite, having a proper, what's commonly called a diet, trust in Yahuwah, and infection will be the last one we talk about. All right, so that's what we're going to do today, and then we'll go over some things towards the end about how it's linked with, well, I'll just wait. All right, so things to avoid that will affect your white blood cells. What things you think will affect your white blood cells? Good. First one is refined sugars, right? Refined sugars. Caffeine can inhibit the production of white blood cells. Now, coffee drinkers, those, what's that bull, what's that Red Bull and all that crazy stuff. I just understand what it does. So I'm telling y'all, I get caffeine free, got it. Next is hybrid wheat makes your body make too many white blood cells, okay? This causes histamine or allergies. Okay, so of course the question is, what does the doctor give you for allergies? Is antihistamines, right? All right, awesome. But we're not going to talk about none of that. I'll just give you guys some extra information. So let's get started. First word we're going to talk about is the immune system. So I could write on the board with this thing, right? Okay. All right, so we'll see. All right, so to say immune system here, the first word here for system is ma'arechet and then kitsun. So ma'arechet kitsun literally means, this word here means line, row, army, battle line. In the yellow, arach is the shortest, or the root word, which means to arrange, all right? Means to arrange. So everyone's okay with this, right? All right, so this system was arranged in a way that we can have an army, a battle line, if you will, in our body. This is the system, okay, that Yah has made us with. The word there, kitsun, for immune, comes from the Hebrew word kotsin, which is from the root katsan, which means a foundation, stability, strong, abundance, secured. And that's why I said Yahuwah Sibaot is you're going to see that one of the words, kitsun or katsin, is going to be the word for mighty that's within you. Okay. So sava, for the word sibaot, this is the root word in its singular form. To fight, it says against people, attack, perform services, service X, Y, and Z. The other one is host, like the heavenly host, right? Everyone's familiar with the word host, right? Everyone's good with this, so there should be no problem here. All right, so Yeshayahu Isaiah 33:6 says, and he will be the stability of your time, abundance, kutsin, right? Abundance of salvation, wisdom, and knowledge. The fear of Yahuwah is Sion's treasure, or Zion's treasure, all right? So first, you see that the abundance, that's the word there, abundance. Let's see if I can erase, because I don't know if it's going to bring it to the next board or not. All right. Mishle Proverbs 15:6 says, in the house of the righteous there is a much treasure, chotzin, right? Treasure, but trouble befalls income of the wicked. All right. So the first word within the immune system we're going to talk about is the word cell. The word cell is ta. That's the Hebrew word for cell. Okay, ta. Masculine now referring to a room, a chamber, a guard room. It refers to a guard room or a chamber or of a palace or a temple. So why do you think this is important? No one knows, no worries. The root word is ta'ah, which means to mark out, to point out, to have boundaries, right? This is the cell that's within you. This is the physical portion first. Now, 2 Chronicles 12:11 gives us the example where you see the word ta. And as often as the king went into the house of Yahuwah, the guard came and carried them and brought them back to the guard room. El Ta, brought them back to the guard room. So even though we went over this 2015, 2016, when we talked about the temple, how the temple's built like a man. Did y'all remember that lesson? Okay. All right, so your mind is a cell and a temple. It has to have boundaries, okay? It have to have boundaries. It has to be guarded. Your mind, your heart is likened to the Kadosh Kadoshim, or the most set apart place. So everyone should understand that your mind is the most set apart place, because that's what's going to determine if you're going to go crazy or not, right? All right. So you remember we went over this here, the Kadosh Kadoshim. So from an aerial view, this is the temple during the time of Solomon. But if you look at this here, you see up top in the Kadosh Kadoshim, in the most set apart place, you see the Ark of the Covenant. You see the two menorahs, the two lights, right? Look like eyes. You see the nose. You see they go into the steps. It's like the mouth. Then you get to the Kadosh place, or the set apart place, and it looks like ribs. and things like that. And then you got your outer cell walls with your arms. You remember the 5 lavers on each side for the washing, and then of course the labor at the bottom. Remember, we went over this completely, but the point is that the way that the temple, because he gave Moses a picture of what the temple is supposed to be made like, but it's made like a person. And if we can understand this, we can understand, basically what we need to do to prepare ourselves. So not everybody should be in the most set apart place. Okay? Not everybody should be there. Y'all remember who should be there outside of Yahuwah and his Ruach?
Once a year at Yom HaKippurim, the Kohen HaGadol, right?
Right. But I'm saying for you, if this is you, who should be in the most set apart place? Okay?
I was going to say the commandments, the covenant.
Okay, right. Outside of Yahuwah, right, and his word. We definitely want Yah in the most set apart place in our minds and our heart, right?
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. Outside of that, should your coworkers be there? Just give me an example. Who should be there? Okay, so everyone agree yourself needs to be protected there, right? Who else should be there?
Ruach.
Right, Ruach. The host of Yah, definitely. There's no problem. I'm saying outside of the spiritual realm of Yah, because we don't want no demons, and we're not talking about any of those things. I'm saying among us, who else should be in the most set apart place?
Your loved ones, your mishpachah, set
Okay.
apart ones.
All right, so you'll say your Yeladim, your children. Okay, your spouse, coverings, leaders. Is that what we understand? Because, when you're becoming one with someone, you can't become one by yourself like that. But you got to be careful, because even amongst us can mess you up there as well, right? But Yah's giving you the teachers, he's giving you evangelists, everyone knows all the people he's giving you to better you within yourself, to make this stronger. But if you, let's just say, eating from a bunch of different tables, this can be corrupted, right? If you trying to seek other answers from other people, that's, let's say, not sound, can corrupt this most set apart place. Is everyone with me so far? All right, but we talked about that, so we'll let that go. So here's what I'm getting at. In Mizmor, Psalms 89, verse 8 says, Yahuwah Elohai Sibaot, or Yahuwah Elohim of hosts, who is Katzin, who is mighty, right? As you are, oh Yah, with your faithfulness are around you. So here you see that the same word for immune is the same word they use, is contributed to even Yah himself. So that's why I say Yah is your immune system. He's the one that aligns you, protects you. He has a host of Melachins that protects you. Everyone's familiar with all of this, right? Okay, great. So what makes your white blood cells thrive and be healthy, naturally and spiritually? 3, 2, 1. All right, so let's look at it. Oxygen, pure, clean air. Everyone understands that, right? Simple. All right, so Shemayim, right, means heaven is a place where you have air, gas, water, etc., things that you need to live, right? It just so happens that the host of heaven is there for you spiritually. Is everyone with me so far? Next is the Ruach, spirit, but it's also translated as wind, breath, and air. So, yes, we need these things physically, but we definitely need this spiritually, okay? Right now, we're only going over definitions of words. All right, the blood cells are made from within the bone marrow. Everyone agrees? Everyone's familiar with the... Okay, awesome. All right, so the word etzem, which means bone, body, same self, from otzem, meaning mighty, strong, and substance. So the root atzam means strong, numerous, powerful, defend, protect. Now, before I give you the next slide, the woman was made from the bone and the bone, right? Okay. So keep this in mind. Before we go to the marrow, you don't have to worry about that portion here. This is the full definition of the word marrow. These are the words that's in Scripture. Soft, fatty tissues fills the healthy person. You can read it in Job 21:24 as a sign for strength and health. But here is what I'm getting at. It says, the man says, this is at last the bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, or Isha, because she was taken out of man. So for the ladies, help me understand. When he's saying bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, I'll tell you what the flesh in just a minute. But bone, what can you equate this and the definition of that word to, let's just say, in a relationship?
Protection.
Okay, so first you'll say, you know what? The man, of course, he's supposed to have all of this, right? But if it's not, there's some things he can't do by himself. Everyone agrees, right? All right, so he makes the woman from the bone, so she becomes what? She can become his strength, okay? Powerful, numerous. How she become numerous? She can make a family grow, right? She can help defend and protect. Okay, everyone agrees to this? All right. So, but the difference is she's doing it for him, right? And he's supposed to for her because she came from out of man. Is that everyone's good with this so far? All right. But sometimes can a woman get too protective, too defensive, let's say too powerful? Is that a possibility? Oh, you're talking like you had experience. Is everything all right? You okay? He put his phone in his pocket. Yeah. Yeah. I'll be right back. I go use the bathroom. I got you. All right. So all I'm saying is that, there's a balance to this. Okay? But right now, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. The word for flesh is basar in the Hebrew. What does basar mean?
So also that's where the root for the word besorah too, right? Like in terms of like a message.
Okay. Good news.
Yeah.
Right? So he sees her as good news, someone that can help protect, defend, make them numerous, make them strong. And this is good news to him. And together they should be able to see Yah. Okay, is everyone with me so far? All right. Ezekiel 32:27 says, and they do not lie with the mighty, the fallen from among the uncircumcised, who went down to Sheol with their weapons of war, whose sword were laid under the heads and whose iniquities are upon their bones. For the terror of the mighty men was in the land of the living. Question here is, what does it mean iniquity are upon their bones? Is that physical? Can iniquity be upon your bones? Physically?
So is the root word for etzim, does that come from the primitive root eitz, meaning tree? No, it doesn't? Okay. I was going to try to take it that route.
I got you, yeah. It'll be chetzah for that one. But what I'm getting at is that this here has to be talking something a little bit high, remez understanding that the iniquities, the things that we do can affect us physically. Okay? The iniquities, the things that we do spiritually can affect us physically. Does everyone agree? Is that simple? Okay, awesome. All right. So, and he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? Okay. And I answer, oh, Adonai Yahuwah, you know. And of course he says, thus saith Adonai Yahuwah, these bones, behold, I will cause breath or ruach or wind, if you will, spirit, to enter to, and you shall live. Okay, so there's a connection if your bones is bad, you're sick, right? If your bones is healthy, they consider you to be healthy physically, right? So what I'm getting at is, but Yah uses these different terms to help us understand something from a natural to a spiritual. If you don't understand earthly things, you understand heavenly things, right? All right. So definitely, yes, we definitely look forward to this time period. This is the two houses becoming one. Everyone's familiar with this story? Okay. Next is light. All right, so order is light, daylight, illuminate, sunlight to enlightened. Okay, so exposure to sunlight increases the movement of the T cells, a key part of the immune system. Sunlight is an immune booster to the body, physically. Everyone's familiar with that, right? So they tell you, give you about 10 minutes to 15 minutes in the sun is good for your cells. Okay? Now, for my Cream brothers, once you get that 10 minutes, maybe 15, it's time to go inside, give y'all some praise. Don't get that. What's that stuff they got? That sunblock. Yeah, you don't want that. Okay. But at any rate, we're going to stick with the spiritual here. 18:4 says, "For thus Yahuwah said to me, I will quietly look from my dwelling like clear heat in sunshine, like a cloud dew in the heat of the harvest." The other word for light is shemesh. That's the literal word for sun, shemesh, right? But it's also a word for minister or servant, shemesh, okay? So you see servant, minister, sun, daylight, to be struck by the rays of the sun. Malachi 4:2 says, "But for you who fear my name, the shemesh, the sun of righteousness, shall rise with healing in its wings. You should go out leaping like calves from the stall." What does this mean? I'm sure you guys read this before a lot of times, right? You guys just read right past it? All right. So there's a spiritual aspect to it. This is what I'm saying is we're now taking it to the next level. Not so much, in other words, the sun of righteousness. Are we looking at that big ball of fire up there and saying, this is the sun of righteousness, so we should worship this sun? Is that what's happening? Okay.
Quick question. I heard that this verse was connected to Mashiach and connected to like the fringes ZZs. Is that correct?
I don't know where you heard that from. What I'm saying is, can we take it to there to believe that? Sure. But am I saying I have a scripture that says specifically that? Okay. But this next one, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousand ministered unto him. Yesham Shunei, right? Ministered unto him. That's the same word for Shemesh, right? And 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judge was set, and the books were open. Can that? Absolutely, right? So this can work. We can say this, but I'm just saying is if we use this, Malachi 4:2, you would have to explain why. Here we can say that we know this because we can follow this all the way into the book of Revelations and some things like that. Okay, is everyone with me so far? All right, so the sun, the light gives you a boost. Spiritually, the sun, the light, the word makes you stronger in Yahuwah, which is the immune system. Is everyone tracking so far? All right. Next word we got is mayim, or water. This one's going to be very brief. Job 11:16 says, "You will forget your misery, you will remember it, waters that pass away." So water is a cleansing system. Everyone agrees to that, right? Isaiah 58:11 says, "And Yahuwah shall guide you continually and satisfy your soul in drought and make fat your bones. And you shall be like a watered garden and like a spring of water whose water fails not." Now, does that mean you're going to be a walking water bottle? So what does that mean? What do you get out of this?
you're going to be renewed, and you're going to be a life-giving person unto others.
Okay. So if we recognize what the water is, especially it's supposed to satisfy your soul. Now the Hebrew word for soul, which the next going to be when we get there, is the word for appetite. That's just, the word appetite, the word for soul is the same Hebrew word. All right. So he's going to give you some water for your soul, right? 17:13 says, "O Yahuwah, the hope of Israel, all that forsake you shall be ashamed, and they that depart from me shall be written in the earth, because they have forsaken Yahuwah, the fountain of living water." Right? If you're trying to get your soul saved, right? What's going to be judged? Let me back up a little bit. What's going to be judged? Is it going to be your ruach, meaning your spirit, your soul? What's going to be judged? Your soul. So you notice the enemy is after your soul. Yah desires your soul, right? And if you want that soul to have this living water in it so that this soul can live. Is everyone with me so far? All right. John 4:10 says, Yahushua answered and said to her, "If you knew the gift of Elohim, and who it is that says to you, 'Give me to drink,' you would have asked of him, and he would have given you living water." All right, so we know we need water. No problem there. What else you need? It's right there. It's pointing to it. Rest, right? You need rest, all right? So you know the word for rest is Shabbat. Means to cease to rest. Bereshit Genesis 2:2 says, "And on the seventh day, Elohim finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his works that he had done." So Elohim blessed the seventh day and made it Vayakod, or Kodesh, or set apart, because on it Elohim rested from all his work that he had done in creation, right? So Shemot, or 20 verse 8 says, "Zakor et Yom HaShabbat Lidkadsho," which literally means remember the Shabbat, for it is set apart, right? Hebrews 3:13 says this, but, because we're all trying to enter into this rest, I believe, right? All right. So it says, "But exhort one another," or comfort one another, "every day." How often do we do it? So we do that every day?
When we feel like it, let's be honest, everybody.
No one knows? So apparently we all can agree then we don't do the everyday thing. Got it. All right. So every day, as long as it's called Hayom, today, right? That none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. Verse 18 says, "And to whom did he swear that they would not enter his rest, but to those who were disobedient?" Okay, are we disobedient? We can be, right? Disobedience causes an infection, right? How many of us are starting to feel a little sick now? Not yet? Okay, well, I got it. Well, keep going then. 19 says, "So we see that they were unable to enter because of unbelief." Question is, what does it mean by unbelief? They didn't enter because of unbelief. What does that mean? Microphone is right on the table.
When I read that, what comes to mind is they was going through the motions when they was doing the commands. When they was in the wilderness, they weren't wholly founded on truly trusting in Yahuwah. They were just doing stuff because they were told to do it.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
Okay, it's right there. My mom just said it. Okay. It was like you're not walking in what you have seen and what you have read. Instead, you're not walking in it, not believing and not walking in it. That
Okay.
you're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
I would just say lack of trust.
Okay, lack of trust. All right, so They're not entered because of unbelief. Now, in the Greek there, pisteos, from the word pistos, which means they were not trustworthy. Okay? So if you're not trustworthy, that's why they couldn't enter in. So it's not like they didn't believe who he was. They just didn't find themselves trustworthy. Okay? So they're giving Shaul credit for this writing. So basically, Shaul's trying to help fix this by saying we should communicate on a regular basis, right? Why? So that deceit of sin won't come in. Now, you got to think about it. Sometimes when we get upset with each other, do we call each other every day? I mean, there's mics on the table. Huh? What's wrong?
Low.
No, it's okay. You're the spokesman for every last one of them because they always just looking at the mic. So, Zacchaeus says, I'll talk for all of you guys. That's a true statement. But the thing is, when we don't communicate, what happens? You the mic? Mm-hmm.
Everybody separates.
Okay, separate.
And it gives the enemy a chance to seep on up in there, and it causes assumptions.
Okay.
Deceit.
Right.
We don't talk to each other. It's easy to bring deceit in.
Right. So what happens is when you don't, deceitfulness or sin starts to creep in because the longer we don't talk, the more our minds have a chance to expand on the situation in a different way. We're not saying, oh, this person's not calling me because he's in prayer with Yah. So I'm just waiting for him to come out of his chamber. And when he does, he's going to be right on. Is that what we're thinking? No? Okay, so the point is, what I'm sharing is that he's saying that that's a hard thing to do for all of us, right? To talk to that person after the argument as if nothing is wrong, especially if it hasn't been fixed. But the objective, obviously, is to get it fixed, right? But the longer it goes from 1 week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks to 4 weeks. Before you know it, you got a whole story. Let me tell you what this person did. And I know why they didn't call me, because they went right around the corner over there and did this. They got a whole story. You let it go too long, right? All right, so anyway, 4:1 says, therefore, while the promise of entering his rest still stands, let us fear lest any of you should seem to have failed to reach it. So right now is we have the opportunity just trying to get things right. Is that fair to say? All right, we'll keep going. Exercise. All right, so exercise increases blood supply and blood flow. Everyone agrees, right? If not, if you want to jump up right now and run downstairs, come back upstairs, I guarantee you, your blood will be flowing. Now, the word there, regel, from the word regal, means to walk, about, to explore, to step. Okay? Exercise is good. Hosea 11:3 says, yet it was I who taught Ephraim to walk, to Galti, to walk. I took them up by their arms, but they did not know that I healed them. So, of course, I said, could you be walking as if you are still sick? Meaning, Ephraim, if you see, he had taught Ephraim to walk. And I took them by their arms. So he's literally doing something, but what happened? They did not know that I healed them. They did not know that they were healed. They're still moving as he's trying to help them. They're still moving as if they're still sick. So the question, obviously, today is, could Yah have already healed or fixed us, but we're still moving as if we're still sick? Possibility? Okay. 3 John 4 says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. All he wants us to do is just walk out the truth. Okay? We're at the appetite, nephesh. All right, so nephesh means breathe, life, soul, creature, person, appetite, mind. So, of course, I start off with, since it's appetite, we think about our food, right? So it says, for I am Yahuwah, I need Yahuwah, who brought you up out of the land of Mitzrayim to be your Elohim. You shall therefore be what? Kadashim ki kadosh ani. Be set apart, for I am set apart. Okay? 46 says, this is the law about the beasts and the birds and every living creature that moves through the waters and every creature that swarms on the ground, to make a distinction between the unclean and the clean, between the living creatures that may be eaten and the living creatures that may not be eaten. And if you go into your neighbor's vineyard, you shall eat grapes as much as fills your soul, your nefesh, but you shall not put any in a container. Yeshayahu Isaiah 26:8 says, in the path of your judgment, O Yahuwah, we wait for you. Your name and remembrance are the desires of our nefesh, our soul. 26:9 says, my soul yearns for you in the night. My spirit within me earnestly seeks you, for when your judgments are in the earth. Psalms 120 says, my soul is consumed with longing for your rules at all time, right? So there's a connection between what you eat naturally and what you eat spiritually. So I'm only just simply sharing, we got the dietary law down. But sometimes the things that we want to eat spiritually, is it right for us? That's the question. Is it? I mean, spiritually, if it's righteous, if it's good, can we eat it? Everyone agrees? Okay, great. A proper diet, as it's commonly called, means what you eat needs to be based off of what you need and not because you can eat it. Okay? Not all spiritual food or foods is good for you. Your maturity determines this, not your appetite. Okay? So just because it says it, just because you want to know, it may not be your time. Okay? Any questions so far? Lo?
You so can you explain that a little deeper? You said
No.
just because it says just because we're allowed to do something,
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that does that mean like it's not something that we're ready for in the moment, and it could be what could happen if we just take on something we're not ready for.
You can contaminate it. But okay.
I was going to try to help answer his question. Is that okay?
Say again?
I was going to try to help answer his question.
Okay.
So basically what he's saying is like, if you're at like a babe stage or a milk stage, you want to be trying to be like a teenager. You don't want to try to do what teenagers do or grown folks do, basically.
Okay.
So say you're in a situation where, all right, people at your job know that you walking in the truth, you understand what you're doing or whatever, and they come to you asking you like some deep questions that you may have a idea or inkling about, but you don't truly have that much understanding. You tell them like, "Nah, I don't really want to get into that." Would that be causing would that cause an infection on their end, like we was talking about when we first started the lesson, and how you go about that? Would you be wrong for saying like, "Nah, I don't really want to get in that," or like, should you handle that in a different manner?
Yeah, I would handle it a different manner, meaning I would share with them, I don't have all the ins and outs of that particular topic or subject matter, because a lot of times there are things that Yah just wants us to know and our foundation to be strong, right? There are some things that just belongs to, let's just say, I'm not a woman. I don't need to know the ins and outs and the rules and laws of a woman, right? Other than the regular laws that we all universally should know. But if there's laws that are catered to women, the women can talk and grow and mature on that. Is that fair to say for everybody? There are some things that belong to the men. Sometimes maybe the women want to know that, but like, no, that's not your lane. There's some things that belong to, they have sister studies, right? So let's just say within the sister studies, there's some things that if the sisters are studying, and the ones that are in there learning and growing doesn't give them the ability to be the teacher, right? They're still growing and learning, but they can have as much questions. You'd be like, well, some of these questions is not your time. You understand? In other words, it's growing, it's building to something. Same thing for leaders. Leaders will say, yeah, but that's just not your time because you're going to be confused. You know what I mean? And so because of that, it creates problems for people. When I say problems, I would say, so I'll use one that I'm sure Kasada wouldn't mind me using in this example since I talked to him the other day. And it's not Kasada that I'm referring to, but he had a question, or he was talking with a brother, and they're talking about the stars of heaven, right? Now, the thing about it is, they're talking about this here, but how does this, meaning how the calendar works, how does that parallel with end time prophecy, right? Can you learn end time prophecy without knowing the calendar? Answer is what? It's not possible because they go together. So if a person doesn't know the whole scope of how this works, it's hard to try to push that into somebody when they don't have an understanding of how certain things work. Does that make sense? So therefore, because of that, it can be frustrating for both because one is genuinely just wants to know. The other one is genuinely they're giving them fast answers or short answers, but they don't need the little short answer. They need this long, drawn out lesson per se. You see what I'm saying? So it creates issues. So some things is just, the appetite is there and they want to eat that. And I want to learn this, I want to know this, but the maturity needs to be there as well.
So what comes to mind to me is maybe a classic, another example, maybe parallels this, is trying to study maybe Shaul's letters maybe without a understanding the Torah and the prophets that he's referring to first, right? Could you say that could be if
okay.
Can you just speak on that? Yeah.
Sure. So I would say, one way of doing that, let's just say Shaul's letters can be confusing for some people. If it is, why not first learn the Torah, know the Tanakh? Because he was very well versed in the Tanakh. So then once you learn that, then as you start to grow and mature, because how many of us would say back in the day, in the scriptures, the scripture says this, and then it'll go to Corinthians, and it'll go over to Galatians. But the scriptures, these are the scriptures. How many of us did that? Right? A lot of us will say that. But then as they started growing, it does say it's an epistle. It really does say it's a letter. I do find a place where he says, Yahuwah doesn't say, but I say. He's giving his opinion. Then you start to say, well, maybe. And then he says in his letters, so he talks about, you can find this in the scriptures. You see what I mean? Then you start to grow. The maturity starts to grow. You see what I mean? So sure. So I would tell someone, if they're really just butchering it or if they don't understand it, just tell a person, hey, listen, I agree that Shaul's letters are sound, and they're sound for the situation that Corinth was in, Galatia was in, Thessalonica was in, Rome was in, right? And there's some things that they were in that we might be in today that can help us. But his foundation was the Tanakh, you see? And then you start to help from that perspective. All right? All right, where are we at now? Trust. All right, so what is trust? Faith. Let me ask y'all, have you ever heard this word called trust? Is that a new word? Okay, trust.
I would say it's confidence in a matter or a person.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, similar. I was going to say like reliance.
Okay. All right. So it says you can have faith, but what is the root meaning of trust in Scripture? So the word there is betach, right? Confidence and security. All right? So Psalms 115 verse 9 says, "Oh, Yisrael, trust in Yahuwah. He is their help and their shield." 125 verse 1 says, "Those who trust in Yahuwah are Kehar Sion. They're like or as Mount Zion, which cannot be moved, but abides forever." Right? You have some type of security, some confidence in this trust. All right? So trust lends to truth. Right? But you have Aman, Emunah, Amen, and I'm just strictly going with Emeth or Emet, which means truth then becomes something that is consistent. Consistency, duration, faithfulness, trustworthiness. Okay, everyone sees this, right? So they start to come together. So a couple of places is Exodus 18:21 says, "Moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear Elohim, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the people as chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, and of fifties, and of tens." Zechariah 8:3 says, "Thus saith Yahuwah, I am returned unto Zion, and I will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem shall be called," anyone want to try it? Ir ha'amet, v'har Yahuwah Sebaot, har hakodesh. Yes, in the Anglit, in the English, it says the faithful city and the mountain of Yahuwah, the host, the set apart mountain. Okay? All right. And then roll your eyes. All right. So now we're at the last portion, infection. All right. So infection, the devachab from the word devach, which means something that clings, join, adhere, stick, attach, holds fast to something, overtakes someone or something. Okay? Psalms 119:25 says, "My soul clings, devacha, to the dust. Give me life according to your word." Job 20:10 says, "The voice of the nobles was hushed, and their tongue stuck, devacha, or devaka, to the roof of their mouth." 2 Chronicles 3:12, "And of the keruv," or kind of called the cherub, "one wing of the 5 cubits touched the walls of the house, and the other wing also 5 cubits was joined," devaka, "to the wing of the first cherub," or cherub as it's commonly translated. Okay, so viruses can replicate themselves only by infecting a host cell. Okay? So, like spirits and demons, we're going to see that in just a minute. So, question becomes is, if you get infected spiritually, the design of these things, which we're going to see in just a minute, is to try to take over you, take over your body, right? Everyone remember this from some time ago? All right, so we're going to see that a little bit. So what does it mean to be sick? The word there is chala, which means to be sick, to be ill, to be weak. Okay? So the verb also used for emotional suffering as in love sickness. How many of us got love sickness? Huh? No? No. Okay. All right. It is apparent that chala is a various stems describes condition of a bodily as well as emotional weakness. So I'm going to give you something that you guys are familiar with. So one of it is, how many of us want to try to appease somebody? Huh? They consider that like being sick, right? You just, yeah, okay. The other one is to flatter, right? You don't do that? None of y'all do that? I mean, I know not in the walk. I'm just saying, I mean, before the walk, everyone was into the flattering part? Okay, got it. Yeah, got it. Mm-hmm. All right. So, put it all together. Job 19:26 says, "And after my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see Eloah." Okay? In my flesh I shall see Eloah. Mark 2:17 says, "And when Yahushua heard it, he said to them, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick, I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." Luke 5:32 also says, "I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." Okay? Now, spiritually, the immune system is Yahuwah. He's called Yahuwah Sebaot. He has allowed us to see him in a way in which we were constructed, in the way we were made. Genesis 1:26 says, then Elohim said, let us make man, and it says, Bitsalmenu ki mutenu, which is in our image and our likeness, right? And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heaven and over the livestock and over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, right? So we was having this dominion like Yah has dominion, if you will, just on a smaller scale. 27 says, now Elohim created man, Bitsalmo, Bet Selem, which means in his image, in the image of Elohim, he created him, male and female, created he them. All right, so in the state, mankind was not sick at this part here, right? They were good to go. Everything they needed to have dominion over everything on Yahweh's behalf. Once sin increased on the land, the further we became from being in the image and likeness of Yahuwah. Everyone's in agreement to this so far. So let's look at what could be causing you to be sick today. So when you weaken your immune system, you open yourself up for the infection or an attack in the flesh, in the mind, and in the spirit. So the things that are highlighted in blue, I'm just talking about. The things that are highlighted in the yellow is what we're going to quickly define, okay? So 1 Peter 5:6 says, humble yourself. If you look it up in the Greek, it also means level yourself. Okay, you need to level. You need to humble or level yourself. Therefore, under the mighty hand of Elohim, so that at the proper time, he may exalt you. Sometimes we want to exalt ourselves. Can you give me an example why we would want to do that? We could say pride, but I want to get like specifically
Vain.
saying, vain? Okay, so let's just say one reason is because if you know you're right, I want to beat that right in that person, right? So, but then if you do that, how can he exalt you? Right? All right. 7 says, casting all your anxieties, your cares, your concerns on him because he cares for you. Be sober-minded. We're going to discuss that. Be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. 9 says resist. We're going to talk about that. Him from your faith. Knowing that the same kind of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world. Ephesians 6:11 says, put on the whole armor of Elohim, that you may be able to withstand against the schemes of the devil. So we're going to talk about schemes. 12 says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against authorities, against cosmic powers, over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of Elohim, meaning their spiritual immune system, if you will, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day and have done all to stand firm. Stand, therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness of given by the good news of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim. Now, the things that are in the blue, we're not going to talk about. The other ones we will. All right, so when you weaken the immune system, you open yourself up, right? So now, the word there, be sober, be sober-minded. It's saying to you to do what? Be calm, be vigilant, be self-controlled, well-composed in mind, well-balanced in the mind. That's how you be sober-minded, okay? Easy to do for some. Next is resist, right? In other words, Resist is another way of worries, distractions. So stop worrying or being distracted by the adversary and his or its tools. Okay? His design is to get you off track. All right, schemes, craftiness, deceit, cunning, schemes of the devil, Satan, Nakash. Everyone's familiar with that word, which also means be crafty as well, right? Okay, wrestle, struggle, fight, to sway back and forth. Everyone's familiar with these things. Rulers, wicked forces, a source of supernatural power, a beginning power of chief rulers, and a prince. We're not going to talk about none of that stuff today. Authorities, an authority to rule, energy, power, or choice, a prerogative, a veil. You can read that, for an example, 1 Corinthians 11:10, the symbol of authority. Cosmic power, a monarch of the world. In the Brit Hadashah, called New Testament, a worldly prince. Spiritual forces pertaining to the soul, pertaining to the nature of the spirit, pertaining or relating to spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places, or in a positive perspective, pertaining to the influence of the Ruach HaKodesh, gifted with a spiritual frame of mind. So there's this war that we're going to be fighting, or we're probably still fighting. So I want to give this to you. We're almost done. So I want to use words that are used amongst one another and process them from a psychologist's perspective and trace them back to a spiritual perspective. Okay, is everyone ready? All right, so a psychologist may conceptualize a biological term like anger or lust and may see these works as reflexive or drives. Is everyone familiar with this? Okay. This is because it can be seen as a transcendent fundamental motivational force, meaning shared by all humans. Meaning there's a thing that we all share. Okay? It is conceptualized and or categorized as personalities like fear, anger, lust, even pain. So Ephesians 6 helps us to see we are fighting against being or beings, but without bodies, right? So he says we do not wrestle against flesh or blood. So whatever this thing is that we're wrestling with, it's not about what I see. It's not about the actual flesh or blood, right? So evil spirits, demons, are personalities, okay? They have a drive or a will that desire to live inside of a body or a vessel. Okay, is everyone in agreement so far? So when you are angry with someone or irritated with someone, the door or doors of your mind opens up and is subject to a spiritual and mental attack. The spirit of anger can come upon you, or another way of saying it, you can be possessed by the spirit of anger. It changes your perception, your emotions, your views of the future, and look back at the past. Now, question becomes, how does that work? Okay.
It might remind you of an experience that you had in the past.
Okay.
With somebody else.
Okay.
It may cause you to resort back to old ways.
Okay. So everyone sees that when anger comes, this spirit is going to want to try to have you relive other things. It's going to have you start all of a sudden you start memorizing other stuff. And you start putting this past and future thing, you start connecting these dots. But reality is, that's really not you. That's not what you really are after. But somehow you got there. So you gotta ask yourself, is that me, or is there something that's giving me this drive to do this? Okay? So this fragmentary subpersonality or disjointed personality overtakes your mind. At this point, you can have a malevolent subpersonality, i.e. you can be possessed. Okay? So evil spirits or demons drive and thrive on emotions. That's what they thrive on, is your emotions. Lust, anger, perversion, addictions, etc. They feed on fleshly matters of the heart. It's not going to feed on righteousness, right? It's not going to feed on what's good. So it becomes an an aggregate of your fundamental subpersonalities that becomes integrated in a way that becomes fuel for the spirit and its forces. You can develop a transcendent personality, okay? Which means a personality that's above your own. You see, you start to change, all right? Because you gave into the emotion and personalities of that entity. They take you to the next level, which normally is not you. Normally, it's not you, okay? So evil spiritual demons are closely allied to our heart and mind when outside of his will and his word. So, for an example, it says, and Yahuwah smelled a sweet savor, and Yahuwah said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground anymore for man's sake, for the imagination, the yetzer, the inclination, right, of man's heart is evil from his youth, right? So I put our hearts can return to its youth or immature state when we have disagreements, right? So when we start having these disagreements, do we sometimes start sounding childish or youthful, or, you know, we start going back to where we matured in Yah's word, but somehow we find ourselves sounding different when we get angry, when we get upset. Is everyone with me so far? All right, so neither will I again smite any more everything living as I have done. So you begin to lose yourself in the moment. It may take you some time to recover or recalibrate your mind. Sometimes you just, I need a break. I need to go do this. I need to go do that. Why? Because something then made your mind go to a place that you really didn't want to go. Is everyone understanding this here, right? All right, so I didn't want to go too far with this. Conclusion. How do we get back, or how do we get our spiritual immune system strong? This is the last slide. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of Elohim. You need milk, not solid food. What does that mean to you in relation to trying to get our immune system strong?
Got to go back to the basics.
Okay. We'll go back to the basics. Anyone else? All right. For everyone who lives on milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, since he is a child, right? Is that what you said earlier? Is a child, which means I'm not talking about a physical child. I'm saying they became mentally, spiritually like a child. Is everyone with me so far? So when you're unskilled in something, and you start having these arguments with people in the scriptures, and sometimes if they're trying to use the word for battling, like we used to do a lot of debates, I can say that, right? But I know that in a lot of debates, if you're winning, you know, you are really trying to put down that other person. If the other person knows he's losing, you're going to notice he's going to start sounding very childlike. You're going to notice what he starts to do. He starts to, because he's what? He's unskilled. And so now he's going to try to trap. He's going to try to use different things to try to get you, you know, this way. He's going to try to put you into a certain type of, there's a lot of things that this person tries to do, because why? They're unskilled in that. Okay? Acts 7:30 says, this is one who has the congregation in the wilderness, when the Malak who spoke to him, Bahar Sinai, which is in the mountain of Sinai, with our father, he received the living oracles given to us. So, again, just sharing with you what the oracles are, right? 3:1 says, and what advantage has a Yahudi, or what is value of circumcision? Much in every way, chiefly because to them were entrusted with the oracles of Elohim. All right, so we need to get back to the basics. What is Yahuwah requiring of me to do? That's just your guys' question for yourself. What is he requiring me to do? What is my calling? And learn to stay in your lane. Okay? What are his likes and dislikes? Meaning, we know the traditional things he likes and dislikes, but I'm saying within our movement, within our actions, know what he likes, know what he dislikes. What has infiltrated my system and has made me weak or has made me infected? Sometimes we have to go back and do some evaluating in our mind and figure out what's going on. What can heal me and restore me? Whatever you find that has caused these things to make you weak or infected, you need scriptures in place of that to help you heal from that and make you stronger. Okay, you need the antidote. Psalms 23 says, he restored my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. If you can answer these questions with scripture, you are on the best track to or back to life. And last thing is, the five senses are the best ways to understand your spiritual five senses. That's just a whole future lesson by itself. We won't be talking about that. Yes, Shelot. Any questions?
You had said something in the exercise slide in Hosea when Yahuwah said, "I taught Ephraim how to walk," and he didn't know who helped him or healed him. Would in the dealing with people, would that be a mindset of like they literally ignorant of it, they don't know, or is that a deliberate "woe is me" mindset?
I would say it's ignorant, because if you know you're healed, you change because you know you're healed. If you're ignorant of this healing, and he's like, I'm here, I'm showing you, someone comes to you, you're fine. I just don't really feel like I'm fine. Well, I don't know, y'all told me to come talk to you, tell you you're fine. Thank you for the encouragement. You see what I'm saying? In other words, there's nothing to do. You have to have in your mind, why are you feeling like you're sick when he done gave you everything you need to heal and grow and walk and endure to the end? They always find something, because either he's given them the answer, but the conditions kind of hasn't changed for them yet. So they're basing it off of the condition that they're in. But y'all could be testing them to say, if you believe it, I'm going to still have your arms up, and you're going to start to see this transformation, this change. Some people don't see that. Sometimes y'all is talking to a person, and they're going through a whole lot of things, and they don't know why they're going through it, or they just don't believe it's for them. And y'all say, yeah, well, until you recognize this is me, you're going to keep going through this. And then you try to find other angles and things like that. But at the end of the day, he's trying to heal you. He doesn't want us to be sick. We have to understand that. So he does things intentionally to help us steer us in the right direction. You know, some things is good, some things I don't feel too well, but he's still trying to direct you in the right path. Okay, anyone else? Hello? All right. My substitution is complete. I release back to Yeshurun. He can finish out his series, and I can finish the videos I got to do myself. I got a bunch of videos I got to do.